All right, let's dive in. Today we're taking a deep dive into the 1984 film Crimes of Passion. And you know what? Our source material today is its Wikipedia page.
Wikipedia, huh? Interesting choice.
Yeah, well, sometimes the most unexpected sources can be surprisingly revealing. Plus, I think it'll be fun to kind of like peel back the layers and see what we can uncover.
I like that. Like a digital archaeological dig.
Exactly. So, Crimes of Passion. This film throws us right into a world of like duality with the main character, Joanna Crane. By day, she's this, super respected fashion designer.
But by night.
By night, she becomes China Blue, a high-class call girl. Talk about leading a double life.
It's like she's living two completely separate realities. And that duality is at the heart of the film's exploration of, like, identity, desire, and the masks we wear, especially in a society grappling with, changing social norms.
And speaking of masks, we have Bobby Grady, who's trapped in this passionless marriage, and he's drawn to China Blue. But it's more than just physical, right?
Absolutely. There's definitely a psychological depth to his fascination. I mean, think about it. He's like the embodiment of these anxieties surrounding masculinity, particularly in a time when traditional gender roles are starting to shift.
Makes sense. He's drawn to the danger she represents, the confidence. It's like an escape from this like mundane everyday life.
Exactly. And then we have Reverend Peter Shane, one of China Blue's clients. And he adds like a whole other layer of darkness to the story.
Yeah, I mean, here's this guy preaching morality but indulging in his deepest, darkest desires.
Yeah, talk about hypocrisy, right?
Yeah.
He even carries around this weaponized vibrator that he calls Superman.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. It's a wild detail. I mean, it's almost like a symbol of like distorted reality.
Totally. He's fixated on saving China Blue, but it's more about him imposing his own twisted moral code. It really speaks to the film's exploration of fanaticism and the way
Uh-huh.
people try to control others.
It's like he's trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And then, of course, we have the director, Ken Russell, known for his visually striking and, let's be honest, often controversial films. What do you think? How does his style play into this whole thing?
Oh, Russell's style. It's
Yeah.
bold, almost operatic,
Yeah.
exaggerated imagery, these dreamlike sequences, and a willingness to tackle taboo subjects head on.
Yeah, no holding back. So with Crimes of Passion, it's like he's using his style to visually explore their inner turmoil, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy, right?
Exactly. And then there's the casting of Kathleen Turner as Joanna Crane, which was a bit of a gamble at the time.
Mhm.
She was known for those more girl next door roles.
Right. So casting her was a pretty bold move. I mean, she brings this raw intensity to the role that really captures both Joanna's strength and her vulnerability. And it's so interesting to think that Jeff Bridges was almost cast as Grady.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That would have been a completely different dynamic. It makes you wonder how that would have changed the film's overall feel.
A different kind of chemistry, for sure. And then there's the whole controversy surrounding the MPAA rating. They initially slapped Crimes of Passion with an X rating, which back then basically killed a film's chances commercially.
Yeah, the X was like a kiss of death. I mean, it meant restricted theater access and limited marketing.
No wonder the studio, New World Pictures, pushed for an R rating. But, to get that R rating, Russell had to make some compromises.
It's funny, though. Here we have Crimes of Passion, a film all about hidden desires and the masks we wear, being forced to wear its own mask for public consumption. It's like the film itself had to censor its true identity.
Almost poetic in a way, and it just adds to the intrigue. Like knowing that a scene featuring China Blue and a police officer engaging in, well, S&M was cut completely. It really makes you think. Where was the line drawn between artistic expression and what was considered, too taboo for the average moviegoer?
It's like a missing piece of the puzzle. We know it existed, but we're left to imagine how it would have impacted the film's overall message.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what Russell was trying to convey with that scene. Like, was it purely for shock value, or was he trying to say something deeper about these characters?
Well, and there were other scenes that were cut too, right? Like that scene where China Blue has a breakdown.
Oh, yeah, the Wikipedia page mentions that one. It says that it was a moment of just like raw vulnerability.
Yeah, it's not hard to imagine why that might have been deemed too intense for an R rating.
Definitely pushing the boundaries.
But think about what that scene could have added in terms of like character development.
Hmm.
That breakdown could have given us a glimpse into the emotional toll of Joanna's, double life.
Hmm.
The pressure of maintaining that China Blue persona.
Right, like even someone who seems so strong and in control, like still has their breaking point.
Exactly. Humanizes her, reminds us that everyone's struggling with something.
And there were those scenes with the erotic art that were cut, too.
Oh, right. Those were supposed to be like visual representations of China Blue's like subconscious thoughts.
It's almost like Russell was trying to give us access to her psyche, her deepest desires and fears, but through this artistic lens.
Totally. Those visuals could have added a whole other dimension to the film.
Mm.
I mean, imagine seeing her anxieties and fantasies playing out through these symbolic art pieces.
It's a shame those scenes were lost to the cutting room floor. But even with those cuts, the film still manages to be incredibly, well, provocative. I mean, especially that scene with the police officer.
Oh, yeah. That scene definitely pushes boundaries, especially for the time. Remember, this was the 1980s, a time when people were a lot more, well, uptight about sexuality.
It's almost like even a film as daring as Crimes of Passion had its limits. But maybe those limitations are what make the missing scenes so, I don't know, alluring.
Right. It's that whole forbidden fruit thing, the mystery of the unknown.
Yeah.
Just makes you want it more.
It's human nature, I guess. So, I mean, in a way, this whole deep dive has become about more than just exploring the film itself, right? We're also exploring, like, the forces that shaped it, the compromises that were made.
Right. And all those unanswered questions that we're left with.
It's like we're piecing together this historical artifact, trying to understand not just the object itself, but the context of its creation,
Yeah, exactly. And that context includes things like social norms, censorship battles, even studio pressures.
Yeah.
By understanding those factors, I think we gain a much deeper appreciation for what filmmakers like Ken Russell had to deal with.
And maybe even a deeper understanding of ourselves, too. I mean, a lot of the themes explored in Crimes of Passion, Desire, hypocrisy, searching for identity, those are things that are still so relevant today, right?
Absolutely. It's like the film holds up this mirror to society and forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about our own desires.
Yeah.
And even without those missing scenes, it sparks those important conversations.
So ultimately, I think that speaks to Russell's skill as a filmmaker. Even in its edited form, the film continues to challenge us and provoke these discussions.
It's like he planted these seeds of thought that just keep growing. The film might be incomplete, but its power to resonate with audiences, that's still there.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that censorship might try to erase something, but the impact of a truly groundbreaking work of art, that can't be silenced. But it does make you wonder, how would watching those missing scenes with all that raw intensity, how would that change our interpretation of Crimes of Passion?
Right. Would those missing scenes enhance our understanding of the characters or the themes, or would it just be shock value? It's hard to say.
I guess we'll never know for sure, but I kind of like that there's still this, like, mystery surrounding it.
Yeah, that sense of something lost, but like still present somehow, it just adds to the film's like mystique.
And that's what I love about analyzing film. It's this constant process of discovery and interpretation, and sometimes even speculation.
It's about looking beyond the surface and finding those hidden meanings that can enrich our understanding, not just of the film, but of ourselves too.
And sometimes it's about accepting that we might never have all the answers. But, the journey of trying to find those answers, that can be just as rewarding as the destination itself.
So true.
So even though we might not ever see those missing scenes, I think we've still managed to uncover some pretty fascinating insights about Crimes of Passion.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've talked about its themes, the controversies, and its enduring power to, provoke and challenge us, but there's still more to discuss.
Okay, so we've gone pretty deep with Crimes of Passion. All those
Fun.
controversial plot points and those missing scenes,
Yeah.
it makes you think, right? Like, what did people think about it back then?
Yeah, I mean, a film doesn't just exist in a vacuum,
Right. It's all about the reaction, the reception. What did the critics say? What about the audience?
Exactly. Like the film's journey, it doesn't end when the credits roll. It kind of enters this whole new world, this realm of public opinion. I mean, you've got critics scrutinizing it, you've got audiences interpreting it, lots of different viewpoints.
And for Crimes of Passion, I mean, it seems like that reception was, well, kind of a mixed bag, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Some critics, they totally loved Russell's, like, audacity, his boldness. But others, they found it just a bit too much.
A little too over the top.
Yeah, like some even said it was exploitative.
Wow. So it really divided people.
It definitely did. I mean, it's a testament to how polarizing the film is. It just refused to play it safe. And that boldness, well, that's bound to trigger some strong reactions.
For sure. And even today, it still seems to divide people. Like, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's just under 50%.
Yeah. It's almost like people either love it or they hate it. not much in between.
No middle ground. And I
Yeah.
mean, we've got some great examples of that in the reviews, like Janet Maslin's review in the New York Times. She actually said that the film lacked Russell's like signature exuberance and humor.
Hmm. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, right. Makes you think, like maybe compared to some of his other films, this one felt a little, I don't know, subdued.
It's a good point. Because if you think about it, Russell was known for that really flamboyant, over-the-top style.
Right.
So maybe even though Crimes of Passion deals with these really provocative themes, compared to his other work, it might have seemed, well, almost restrained.
Yeah, you're right. And then you've got Tony Perkins, who played Reverend Shane, giving his perspective. He said that while he thought the film was brilliant, he also felt like it was missing a strong plot.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, Tony Perkins, he's known for playing these incredibly complex psychological characters. And even he felt like the story was lacking something.
Do you think maybe those missing scenes, like especially the ones about China Blues, her inner world,
Hmm.
do you think those could have added that missing depth?
I mean, it's certainly possible, right? Those scenes, if they'd been included, they could have given us more insight into her character, like why she does what she does, her motivations.
And the whole complexity of that internal struggle she's going through.
Exactly. Maybe it would have given the story a stronger emotional core. Hard to say for sure, but it's worth considering.
It's funny, though, because even though Crimes of Passion wasn't this, like, huge box office hit, it kind of found new life on video, became a bit of a cult classic.
You know, that makes you think maybe home viewing, maybe that allowed audiences to really engage with those more challenging themes, but on a more like personal level.
Yeah, in their own space, at their own pace, it's a more private experience.
Right. And less judgment, maybe.
So it's like, even though it wasn't this mainstream success, it still found its audience. It carved out its own little niche in film history.
And its impact, it goes way beyond just, commercial success.
The film started these conversations about censorship, artistic freedom, what content is acceptable.
And I mean, those conversations are still happening today.
Right.
Like, especially with how much media is changing constantly and what we see on screen, it's always evolving.
Oh, absolutely. Crimes of Passion, it reminds us that art, it can be powerful, it can make you uncomfortable, challenge you, push against what society thinks is okay. Yeah. It's like a wake-up call. And it also reminds us that, a film doesn't just disappear after it's released. It keeps evolving.
Through criticism, how audiences see it, even those rediscovering lost footage years later.
It's crazy to think about how a film can take on this life of its own.
Yeah, it sparks debates, influences culture, even decades after it was made.
It's pretty amazing. Well, I've got to say, after this whole deep dive, I'm kind of in awe of films that dare to be different, challenge us, push the boundaries.
Yeah.
Those films that refuse to be silenced.
It really shows you the power of film, how it can confront difficult topics, explore human nature. I mean, it leaves a mark on our culture.
And to everyone listening, I think we can all agree, Crimes of Passion is a film that deserves to be seen, even with its flaws and those missing pieces. Watch it, talk about it, debate it, decide for yourself what it all means. But most importantly, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.